Okay, so before I start anything, I really want to say thank you to the One Spirit community because I get to learn so much about being a teacher from you guys. I'm so used to talking to astrologers that there's literally been such a learning curve there for me. And I just want to express like your patience with me and that I really feel like it's a privilege that I'm like getting to teach and that you guys are also teachers for me. And so I just wanted to say thank you. Um, so we are about to do the astrology of March 27th to April 2nd. We have a new moon this week. We have some really potent energies happening. And I am going to try to consolidate this and make this like 30 minutes or less. And if you want to know more, I've written out an extensive, forecast for people to read. So today we have a Saturn and Juno conjunction at 21 degrees Aquarius. And before I go into anything dealing with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the collective. I feel like this week has a lot of potent energy, especially for the collective. And it's especially true because of Saturn being in Aquarius. And it's been there for a while, but Saturn is the society, and it is also more of the consensus a lot of times, and that is because that is the majority of our society that we live in. And so the consensus is really something that shapes the values and the beliefs and the direction of the collective conscious of the society. So these are a lot of themes that I'm going to be talking about for this week. And it's really interesting to note that Saturn and Aquarius always has, in history, has always produced, kind of these big bangs for history, these things that go on in societies that really help to try to liberate the collective consciousness and shift it in a new direction. So Saturn went into Aquarius in 2020, right whenever the COVID started happening. And this had to do with the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that a lot of people talked about for years in the astrology community. So it's really interesting to note that started at the beginning of this cycle for Saturn and Aquarius. It's really interesting to go back in history and to look at what was happening when Saturn was in Aquarius. So the time before now, it was the early 90s and the Soviet Union was disbanding. And that was in 1991. And in 1989, that's when the Berlin Wall was coming down. And so these were these themes that were affecting the collective consciousness at the time. Prior to that, it was 1932 to 1935. And that is whenever Hitler was in power. And it is whenever World War II was kind of starting to take shape and to form. So keeping that in mind, we can tell that Saturn in Aquarius is a really big deal. Aquarius is the archetypes of individuation, objectivity, the individuated, collective unconscious. It is whereas Neptune's the collective conscious. Saturn is the structure of consciousness. So we can see that the structure of consciousness is wanting to change. That's why we see these big events happening. We can see that there is an archetype of rebelling and liberating, within the Aquarius archetype. And we can also see that the archetypes of projection and dissonance come into view. So I want to talk a little bit about dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is where someone holds a core belief so strongly that even whenever other evidence is shown to that person to prove like that's not the truth, or that there's, you know, that belief needs to be reevaluated, it becomes really uncomfortable because this person they're holding so firmly on to this belief, this core belief that they have, that even with that evidence shown, they don't believe it. They'll rationalize, they will outright deny that it's true. And this is because if they acknowledge the truth in that, then it would completely blow up that belief system. It would change everything for that person. It would, you know, I have an aunt that says that it would cost them too much, right? Whenever she's talking about people who have dissonance. So what happens is when this occurs, a lot of times this dissonance, this belief, this core belief is then projected onto the people or the society around this person, depending on who you are. And anyone who is having cognitive dissonance, they're having either the society or someone come in and show evidence that this is different. And so what can end up happening whenever this happens in families or in groups of friends or in groups of people, or within a collective, people can be scapegoated. And so it's to turn the attention onto this person, and really they can just, you know, put these projections on this person as to rationalize why this person is bad or wrong, or, you know, lying, or this, that, or the other. So these are kind of all themes that we are looking at when we're looking at Saturn and Aquarius. So Juno is about relationships, because remember, she is conjuncting Saturn at 21 degrees. Juno is about relationships. And she is about the integration of the masculine and the feminine, but when absorbing the masculine, Demetra George really talks about this and gives a beautiful explanation on this. She's really about when she osmosis the masculine in her and fully integrates it, it doesn't take away from who she is. She doesn't outsource. She is this goddess who is devoted to partnerships of all kinds, and is devoted to the balance of the masculine and the feminine. And an archetype that's expressed of Juno and can be seen is the feminine mandala. This really represents Juno. So when she's in Aquarius, this is really, you know, liberating from and being devoted to liberating from any internalized misogyny that is keeping us on a personal and a collective level, not balancing out and embodying the masculine and the feminine. So this in America, as I was talking about the Saturn and Aquarius and the stuff that's gone on in Europe, with the Berlin Wall in the 90s and with Hitler in the 30s, I think that we are seeing this play out yet again with Putin in Ukraine. And here in America, and that is affecting the collective on a world level, because it's war, and it's, you know, everybody's showing this guy who is completely has dissonance, that there's evidence to prove that he's wrong, and he is not doing it. He will not back down. We saw this with Hitler as well. But here in America, yes, that is affecting us. But here in America, we are seeing this whole Juno and Aquarius phenomenon play out. And what that is if Juno is the embodiment of the masculine and the feminine, and she is wanting us to relinquish, to rebel against internalized misogyny and wanting us to observe so we were able to discern what that is and how we're carrying it and how it's affecting us and how it's distorting things, and because we're suppressing them. And it all has to deal with our society's conditioning around that. We can see with Juno and Aquarius, she is really about liberating from how society views gender, how society views gender roles. There's a curiosity to want to change dynamics in relationships, or how we relate in relationships to gender roles. Sorry, I have dogs barking. But we can see all of this playing out in America, and we can see how with Leah Thomas, so many opinions are coming out about whether or not she should be allowed to play and not play, but swim in the women's swimming. And we have to ask ourselves on a collective level and on a personal level, is there some type of dissonance going on there about this? Is there something that, you know, we're not making an informed opinion about because we're having dissonance? If we really look at the what society is saying, what the trans community is saying, what the NCAA is saying, what science is saying, then we can assume that there's a lot of dissonance going on. And so I really feel like on a collective level, this is going to play out even more. And so it's something to keep in mind. So Juno also conjunct Saturn and Aquarius is really about inclusivity, right? Aquarius is the archetype of inclusivity as opposed to exclusive, right? So when I think of exclusive, I think of holding on to a belief that defines something that really creates a separation. And so there's this elitism that can kind of come about in different ways. So with that in mind, we really want to be observant about what is going on, because later on in the week, there's going to be some things that come about. So I want to make sure I look at my notes. Yes. So also on this day, all of this Aquarian energy is ruled by the planet Uranus, and Uranus right now is in Taurus. And so this Taurus Uranus is making a balsamic semi-sextile to Chiron and Aries. And this is really about liberating from past values about oneself, not listening to oneself, and really being able to heal these parts of us where we feel like it has created fragmentation or has created some type of identity crisis for us. And so there is, you know, with this balsamic semi-sextile, there's really this deep teaching in shaping these new values so that a new identity can form. And whenever we're looking at that, we're looking at how we're doing that is from the past few weeks, how we've been reviewing through our observations, okay? And kind of letting things, I like to say, letting the dots connect. So later on that day, Sophra sign makes a first quarter trine to Pluto. And this is really about the same thing, having discernment over how we're going to do this, and having discernment over the ways that society has these really crystallized beliefs, or beliefs that have become crystallized. And so it's having us take a deep look into what those are, and very much so discerning that, so that way we can actually have the truth revealed to us about these things. That way we can evolve, and we can see this on a collective level right now, and we can impart this in a personal level. So then on Monday, Venus joins Juno and Saturn, and this is also in a balsamic conjunction. And this is signaling to commitment to new values. So it's, this just builds upon each thing. Each day, I want you to think of it as building on itself. So this is really about being commitment to like shaping these new values, having a curiosity to learn about that, listening to the inner voice, because that's what's going to guide you. And that's listening to your natural voice. It is also having the willingness now to talk about the things that, if we're in a personal relationship, that we need to change so that a new foundation can be made. And so this is really tidying up, because the next day Venus moves past and it starts the new phase. So it's like really where you can start talking about this, or really starting to make the changes here. And so later on Tuesday, Venus in Aquarius is squaring the nodes. And so our south node is in Scorpio, and our north node is in Taurus right now, the transiting nodes. And so this is really a call to action to really analyze and review that deep psychological content that is having us, we're not living in the truth of what's occurring right now, because it's being filtered from the past. So it's there might be things come up on this day that have to deal with that. And the call to action really here is to just have acceptance about it and claiming authority over it. That way, those structured ways from the past and the values that came from the past can now really be metamorphosized and integrated in a new way. So that way we're unrooted from the past, and now we can ground into a new foundation with new values that help us evolve. Whereas in the past, we were being stuck through habitual patterns, really dealing around like fear, abandonment, trust, manipulation, things like that. So then on that day, the moon and Neptune conjunct in Pisces. And so some people who are like really empathic, they're going to feel the collective. They're going to be able to osmose like the collective into them in a way that they're really going to feel what's like occurring right now, or what's about to transpire. Because it's this very much balsamic going into the new. And so it's like having one foot in the past and one foot in the future. You know what's on the horizon, but you still have some things you need to finish up before you can move on. And so some are going to feel this in a very powerful way. Others are going to have really disillusioning idealisms maybe come up. There might be for others truths, things that felt hidden in the past. Now you're being able to osmose the truth of what might be happening. Some may not be able to do that though. Some might stay in the idealism. So really, this is a day where we need to observe. That way, later on in the week, there comes a time where we can act and we can speak on these things. But there really needs to be observation. And we have to think about Neptune and Pisces can be very foggy. It can cloud things up, but it also can dissolve things in such a way that there's clarity. We're now able to see. It's like the dust has settled. So some of us might be, even though it's balsamic, there might be, there's a lot of balsamic and new phase energy. Some might be kind of more in this new phase, and some of them might be trying to finish up a cycle that is around having idealisms or idealistic expectations, and some will be wrapped up in that still, and then others will be starting a new phase where some of that is dissolving and they're now able to see more clearly, or it's on the horizon. So Sedna and Sophor sign conjunct on this day in Taurus. And Sedna, she definitely has like a treasure chest. And so for some of us, this can be as a way to help the collective. We have to start with ourselves first. That also reiterates that Venus and Aquarius square to the nodes is that we have to be an observer of ourselves in relationship. That way we really understand and we can purify the things that need to be dissolved. That way they're no longer there, or have an integration. So with Sophor sign conjunct Sedna and Taurus, this is really about some of us finding and having discernment over what materials are being revealed to us that maybe were dormant within us, or abilities, or things that we've creatively actualized in prior lives. And so Sedna is kind of opening this up, and Sophor sign is wanting us to have discernment over what we need to be using as a way to not only help ourselves, but to have the ripple effect. This is something that's going to help. What gifts or what resources do you have that can help the collective, that can help further? And so some of us might be having these things really revealed to us whenever this happens. And this is, like I said, on Tuesday. Then on that same day, nope, this is on Wednesday, sorry. Then on Wednesday, Lilith finally passes the North Node. And this is really asking us to look at on a collective level, the distortions of the masculine and the feminine. And the suppression that those distortions have created, and how we can now move on and really own those things and live in that creativity, the co-creation of the masculine and the feminine. This is also about the repeating signature of this week, shedding internalized misogyny, right? Because original Lilith is the original wild woman, and she embodies, the masculine and the feminine, and the distortion and the rage that we carry from the distortion. And I think some of us are really going to, with Sedna and Sophor sign conjuncting on this same day, some of us are going to find out that we have these capabilities that we couldn't recognize within ourselves because we were carrying too much of these distorted things that were suppressing these naturally occurring resources that we carry within ourselves. So then on Thursday, the moon in Aries is in a balsamic conjunction with Mercury. And this is a repeating signature that tells us that there needs to be some courage to, some of us are going to have courage to use our voices. I also think on a collective way, like in a collective way, either on this day or on the new moon, which happens on Friday, I think that someone could come out in the media in a really big way and be speaking, having the courage to speak up. This could be like whistleblowing. I just kind of have this feeling. So it will be interesting to look at if that happens. Then on Friday at 1:13 a.m. Central Time, there is an Aries new moon. And so this is really, if you didn't have courage the day before, there might be some courage on this day, on Friday. And the key is, before you speak up, think and really reflect on what it is that you're wanting to speak up about, that you haven't been able to speak up about, if this is you. And that way you can speak up in a way that is responsive instead of reactive. That's the key with Aries, is to learn how to be responsive instead of reactive. And so Mars is the ruler of both of these because they're in Aries, and Mars is in Aquarius. And so this is really about liberation happens when we have the courage to do whatever it is, to speak up, to do whatever it is that we need to do. And so this is just kind of re-emphasizing this, saying, yes, you can do this, and it will be so liberating. So on a collective level, this can really be the starting of a new identity for the collective conscious because of the things that have been transpiring and the way that it's moving the collective unconscious. I think it'll be really interesting to see where the identity is going in 6 months at the full moon. And it'll be really interesting to see what really happens from this year cycle a year from now when there's another new moon in Aries. So this would be a really good day on a personal level to write down all of the things that you want to do in this year and look at what are the ones you want to do at 6 months and what are the ones that you want to have done at a year. And this is really about the universe saying, hey, you have courage to do these things that you weren't doing before. You've been doing the work. So now put those desires to actualize this and actually do it. And so writing it down can really help just manifesting the positive energy that you want, or it's just the energetics of courage and desire to continue to evolve. Okay. Then the day after the new moon, the moon actually conjuncts Eris, and this is the daughter of strife and war. So with everything that's been going on with the war in Ukraine, I think it'll be really interesting to see if someone has came out and spoke about something, somebody's whistleblown about something here in America or about the war, or if something major happens within that, because these are all things that are, if you think about it, this is such a big archetype that has these these repeating themes of a new moon starts a new cycle. Aries is the archetype of a new cycle, and it's happening on the first day of a new month. And so it'll be really interesting to see the next day what unfolds that's really like segueing this new cycle. So, and it happens to be the moon on Eris. So I just really want all of us to pay attention to ourselves, like I've been talking about, and whatever is revealed to you about yourself, whatever resources that your higher self is revealing to you, that source is revealing to you, I want you to think about how you can actualize them in some way and integrate them into society. That way it is helpful and beneficial and helps the collective move on. There's so much energy with a lot of the Pluto Scorpio, Pluto Sag, and Pluto Capricorn generations right now that are really, really, really wanting to start this new cycle and it be more in alignment with the values, with new values that are not dissonant, that we're really rebelling and liberating from all of those really crystallized beliefs. So I want all of us to be thinking about that. How can we help? How can we help further the collective? How can we continue to decondition from our society's conditioning that has been suppressive in nature? How can we continue to evolve? What's unfolding that's showing me an area where I'm stuck at, where I'm not evolving? What do I need to discern about this in order to move on, instead of resisting, having the courage to really go forth and liberate from past behaviors or trauma or anything. So I want all of us to really take like some Epsom salt baths this week and detox, because there's a lot of potent energy that is within the collective right now. And so those of us who are here to be of service and who really want to help change what's going on, I want all of us to really be in observance of this week. So I want to thank you guys, and I posted the chart. I didn't pull it up today, but I posted it in the post on my website about this week's forecast. All right, I love all of you guys, and it is such a privilege to do this. And so I thank you.